Welcome to the Tax Saving Minute. This is the show that teaches you about income taxes and how you can save money. In Season 1, Beginner Tax Questions, we will teach you about filing status. What is a dependent child? What is a dependent relative? What tax documents do you need to save? What is a standard deduction and how is it different than itemized deductions? What do you do if you get a letter from the IRS? And how do you know if it's really the IRS or a scam? Today, we will talk about filing status. Now, filing status is a little bit different than your relationship status on Facebook. There's no it's complicated or in a relationship. There are 5 options: single, married filing joint, married filing separate, head of household, and qualifying widow or widower. It is very simple. It's not particularly complicated. If you are single, it means you're not married and you have no children and no relatives that you're taking care of. Now, what's a dependent? Well, we'll tell you about that in another episode. Now, there are 2 options if you are married. You can be married filing joint or married filing separate. And the main difference in those is you either have 1 tax return or 2 tax returns. Married filing joint means all your income and expenses are on 1 tax return. Married filing separate means your income and expenses are on 1 tax return, and your spouse's income and expenses are on a separate tax return. Now, that gets a little bit more complicated when you live in a community property state. But for now, all you need to know is married filing joint is 1 tax return and married filing separate is 2 tax returns. The next one is head of household. Now, this one doesn't have anything to do with how dominant your personality is. This is Uncle Sam's way of being kind to single parents and people who take care of relatives. If you have a dependent child who lives with you, or a dependent relative, which we'll talk about in another episode, then you can be head of household. So, for example, in Despicable Me, Gru, at the beginning of the first movie, would have filed single. But at the end of the first movie, he would be head of household with 3 dependent children. The last one is qualifying widow or qualifying widower. This is Uncle Sam's way of being kind to those who lose their spouses. So in the year you lose your spouse, you will still file married filing joint. The following 2 years, you can be a qualifying widow or qualifying widower, which is better for you tax-wise. And then after that, you will be filing single again, or head of household if you have a child. For example, Andy and April are married and have a child. In February of 2018, Andy gets in a fight with Burt Macklin and dies. Now, April in 2018 would still file married filing joint. In 2019 and 2020, she would be a qualifying widow. And in 2021, she would be head of household because she has a child. So that's it. Those are your options. You have single, married filing joint, married filing separate, head of household, and qualifying widow or qualifying widower. Now, what is a dependent child? Join us in episode 2 to find out. If you would like us to talk about a specific subject, contact us at taxmantom.com. Thank you for joining me for the Tax Saving Minute. I am Cynthia Umstattd, CPA with Tom Umstattd CPA. See you next time.